Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this special edition of the Players NIL Industry Insider Podcast. My special guest today is Sydney Umeri. Sydney, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I can't think of a more pertinent guest to have, and I have been chasing you for months and months and months, and so we appreciate finally connecting. Sydney, you are the program manager for Meta's NIL Empower. It's a lot of words, and we're going to dive into that and understand, what your position is in this crazy NIL ecosystem. But first, we like to make it a little personal. So maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, and I'll start with one question. What is your relationship with sports?
Great question. So my relationship with sports goes way back. I played basketball as like my first sport growing up at around the age of 7. That sport took me into college. So while I played many others along the way, ended up getting a full ride scholarship to the University of Virginia, where I played for 3 years and graduated early. Got a chance to play at the University of Kansas to get my graduate degree and finish off my career. And now sports is a big part of my life. It's the industry I work in. I work in sports tech with Meta. I get a chance to work with a lot of wonderful athletes, mainly NIL in the NIL space. And it's really fun to be on this side of sports. I think like when you're in college and younger, you think that like either doing the sport or being a broadcaster are the only two options, maybe a coach to stay in the game. And this has been really fun to see that sports can be a large part of your life and you don't have to take any of those routes to have it be that.
Yeah, great answer, but I'm not going to let you off the hook that easy. I want to go back to your early days and think about your athletic experience. There were mentors, perhaps your parents, family members, a coach, community person, a fan. Talk about some of the lessons that sports taught you that maybe you're still using today, that you reach back. What young people today, they think they're going to play forever. They think they're going to play at the WNBA level if they're a women's basketball player. And we know the reality of all that. But as a young person, when looking back, all those life lessons that occurred, maybe there was a challenge.
Yeah, I think like growing up when you're younger in your sport, I think for me, sports taught me that like hard work will result in good outcomes. So it's like that is a prerequisite to seeing anything good happen. And that's still true today. Like you have to put in the work to see the success that you want to have. It's not just going to come to you. So that's the biggest one. I think on the back end, as you get older, for me specifically hitting college athletics, you learn that like there is more than just hard work required though for you to get to where you want to go. So sometimes hard work will get you there. Sometimes there's other things at play like politics. And so you need to learn how to navigate that. You navigate that in the work world as well. So I think that was like a really difficult lesson to learn, but one that you see it all the time today, where it's like you also need to learn how to work the systems that you're in to get what you want out of it. And so I learned that as well. And that's been super helpful today. I mean, we see it every day. So it's been great.
That's a good answer. And I guess what we're saying is the world isn't black and white. There's a lot of gray in there, right?
A ton of gray. Yeah. It's like when you're younger, it's like it feels black and white and people will teach you that. But as you get older, there's nuance, there's layers to things. People have goals and agendas. And so you need to be able to learn to how to work within that space. But I think that also pops up like in general, like on teams, like everyone on your team isn't the same. You need to learn how to work with them. Like same thing in the workplace. Everyone on your team at work is not the same. You need to learn your personnel, how they work, what motivates them, all of that stuff.
Was there a mentor, a coach, or someone that really gave you a lot of good advice that hit home?
So many, but two in particular. I had uh, two coaches, Bruce Price and Andre Jackson. They were my AAU coaches growing up, and I think just like being around them. I mean, I could pick out so many lessons, but I think like they taught me how to be like an upstanding athlete, like somebody who had morals, values, a standard that I hold myself to, that I wouldn't drop below for any reasons, like whether was an easier way to get to a success or they just told me how to hold a standard for myself and also just how I produced on the court, but in person, in the classroom, they just held me to a higher standard. And I think I have always taken that into everything else I've done. So super thankful for them.
Yeah. Well, you've fulfilled the first principle of our business, and that is how do you use athletics to better your life? And clearly, two great schools, got great education, lifelong friends, I'm assuming, experiences, traveled. I saw you were on a world team at one time. Now you're a professional, you're an adult, quote unquote, right? And you're fulfilling the second principle, and that is using athletics to better the lives of the people around you. So tell us about the NIL Empower program at Meta and your role.
Yeah, so the NIL Empower program has been around for longer than I've been at Meta. Really, I can credit my teammates, Becca Wathen and Nick Marquez, for standing that up. I came in on 3.0, and ultimately, it's a program dedicated to helping female college athletes maximize their NIL. So ultimately, like what we see is, and this has changed over time, but in men are getting a lot of NIL deals and a lot of like noise around NIL, but we find that like women are honestly some of the best content creators and tell some of the better stories with their social content. So we're empowering them to understand our platform, create content in a brand that they can use for long after their time in college athletics, and ultimately allow them to be best set up to garner brand deals and make money off of their name, image, and likeness.
Yeah. One of the phrases in your bio, in the Meta bio, that hit me was consumer listening. What does consumer listening mean?
I think I mean, it's listening to, I guess from the standpoint of a creator or like an athlete, it's taking inventory of what your followers are saying, the people who are consuming your content. Um, what do they want to see from you? How are you able to best meet their needs while also being authentic to yourself? And so for a lot of athletes, that looks like, yes, serving up the content that they're coming there for. They might know you for your sport, but also taking that and then spinning it to make sure that you get what you need out of it. So you might not always be an athlete. They come for who you are, they stay for, or they come for like your athletic ability, they stay for who you are. And so listening to them and understanding like, okay, they're coming for my athletic ability. Let me serve up that content on the back end. Let me make sure that they want to stick around because I'm showing my personality, what I care about, and ultimately building my brand.
Yeah, it's so true. It's a really simple word called connecting with your
Yeah.
audience, right? Yeah, yeah. So name, image, and likeness. The hounds were released. The genie out of the bottle. Any phrase that you want. Started on July 1st, 2021.
Yeah.
Chaos ensued. We quickly evolved into the world of collectives. We quickly evolved into the world of pay for play. I don't care what anyone says. That's where we are right now. Football obviously is the dominant sport. Men's and women's basketball are 2 and 3. And then we get into some interesting sports below that. And some of them are non-revenue sports. But I want to talk about name, image, and likeness in its purest form. And I don't think we've reached that yet. But when I say NIL to you, how do you react? What does that mean? What's your definition of it?
I think it's really just the opportunity for you to take hold of your narrative as an athlete. So I think when people think about NIL today, oftentimes they're talking about it in the sense of like the opportunity to make money, like, can I get a brand deal? Can I use my name in that way? And that is what it is. But I want people to understand, like, for example, when I was playing and NIL was not around, I couldn't run a camp. I couldn't go to any establishment and get my dinner paid for. I couldn't do any of that. And so it is this, like, it is even the lowest level of like building community within your community to like find mutual outcomes. You are a hungry student athlete. There is a business in your town that wants some marketing. Sometimes there's not even a money exchange. It's just a value exchange. So it's your ability to exchange value, the value that you have as an athlete with other people, organizations, and things like that.
What kind of NIL athlete would Sydney Umeri have been?
Oh man. I mean, as much as I'm like, oh, I could have made money, I'm not envious of any of the kids these days or any of the athletes these days. It is a job to like really brand yourself and be a student and be an athlete. I think I definitely would have been a brand safe student athlete, to say the least, an NIL athlete. But my interests, I think, to be honest, I would have struggled to brand myself. Like that's some of the conversations I have all the time with student athletes today. And I use myself as an example. Like I had so many interests that no one knew about. So I was a student, I was an athlete. I loved the books, but like I also loved fashion and cooking, and no one knew about that. So I think I would have struggled to brand myself. I think eventually I would have gotten there and I would have looked for brand deals with like a Hello Fresh of some sort, as well as like clothing lines that I enjoy today. But I definitely have empathy for the fact that like sometimes it's hard and you're also navigating like how you're viewed by your peers. Like you're trying to build this brand, but sometimes the brand, I mean, it's not there initially. So there is this learning curve. There's these growing pains that come with it. And being perceived by your peers while you're trying to build something can be hard.
Yeah, I think that's an honest and fair answer. And I think it makes you relatable to the athletes that you work with. So currently the NIL Empower Program from Meta has 50 female student college athletes. Tell us a little bit about the program specifically. How did you choose the 50? Who are they? Where they come from? What are you empowering them with?
Yeah, so this is the first year that we're able to partner with the NCAA. This cohort has 50. We're also going to open up a cohort in the spring that will have 50. So overall for the year, it'll be 100. How we went about choosing these athletes is the NCAA and Meta put out an application. They applied, and then we were able to go through and just look at, they had to meet certain markers. So everything from like obviously being a Division 1, 2, or 3 athlete in the NCAA. But how are you branding yourself? Do you enjoy content creation? Do we think that you would benefit from like the all that we're teaching you in terms of like what's working on Meta's platforms? Are you brand safe and things like that? Do you have a story to tell? And how can we help you tell it? That's kind of what we were looking at. And ultimately, we're doing a lot of education around our platform. I think Instagram, Facebook, all the platforms that we have, they're always changing. And so kind of giving them the latest and greatest on what's working, what's not working, kind of diving deep into their content and helping them understand what like a content franchise looks like, a signature series that will allow brands to slot in their paid products for them. And then what branding themselves looks like. I think it is hard when I'm a multi-passionate person. I know a lot of athletes they're more than their sport, but they find it hard to kind of articulate what that looks like. So helping them distill that down and figure out what they want to share so that they can tell a better brand story about themselves.
Yeah. What does success look like to you
In the program or just in general?
in the program?
In the program. I mean, we want to see these ladies walk away with greater education on NIL, feel like they are like enabled to go out and build brands that they can use long after. I think some of the best success we've seen over the course of time is women who they are great content creators. Maybe they are good at their sport, or maybe their sport isn't one that's highly visible. And yet they're able to garner brand deals, and they're able to like bring notoriety to who they are just because of the way that they're sharing their story on their platform. So that's really success to us. Like, it's not about you being the best athlete. It's about you walking away with the skills that we're teaching you to be able to leverage that to use your NIL.
I get asked every day about, NIL because it's my life, it's my business, as it is yours. And I am a little bit tired of explaining to people that the top 2%, the collective space that's paying athletes to run fast and jump high, as I say, is not real NIL. I talk about realistic NIL. Real NIL is building brand value, executing some type of a relationship that enhances that. And we talk about a long-term return, not a 4-year thing, but a 40-year thing, because I believe that these young people today will be the leaders of the world going forward. I believe that these athletes that you're working with are going to be our civic leaders. They're going to be our community leaders. They're going to be teachers. They're going to be employers. They're going to be business and foundational pillars in industry. And that athletes have always enjoyed some success in that area. Maybe it's inherent to who they are. Maybe it's the life lessons. We all know athletes that are successful in life. But I think developing these skills and using digital marketing, social media enhancement is just going to accelerate that. Do you have thoughts about where are these girls going to be in 10 years?
Ooh, I mean, it's hard to say. What I will say is that NIL is teaching them business acumen that like you can't pick up unless you're on the job. So oftentimes, like when you're trying to get hired out of college, they're asking for work experience. And most times athletes are like, I don't have work experience. And now I can honestly say, I'm like, maybe you do. Like maybe you have some negotiation skills. Like you've worked with brands or within your school, you have different skills that like I just didn't have because I didn't have access to NIL. I had to learn them on the job, whereas like they've already been exercising those things. So in 10 years, I see those that are in corporate or maybe working in like the general workspace being really solid employees who have like many different life experiences that they could pull from to solve problems within their organization. And I could see a lot of them, and I've seen a lot of them even just forego that and go straight into entrepreneurship, building something for themselves, which I think is always really valuable. And that comes with a lot of life lessons as well. But I could have never thought about going straight out of college into entrepreneurship, whereas that is actually an option today. And entrepreneurship is like, to me, you need time. Like, not every business is profitable right away. Most are not. And so in 10 years, they may have a very profitable brand and business, and they got an early start because of NIL.
I believe that. I think that's true. I agree with you 100%. It's reported that maybe as much as 80% of NIL deals are based on social media. Certainly a large percentage of transactions are based on that relationship, what we call an influencer relationship. What are the pitfalls? What do you caution people against? How do you guide them through, especially females being out on social? I assume that there's a lot of cautionary tales.
I think the biggest thing is you got to hone in on your brand. And I know we've said that. I think it's hard. But you got to think long term. I think that's part of branding. So who am I today? And what things do I think I'll want to keep around later? Sometimes you don't know, like general creators, like people who aren't even student athletes, have to think through this all the time. But it's just like, can I stay brand safe? Because obviously that's something that's super important to be able to get deals. But is this something that I could still stand on like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Social media can be fleeting, especially if you're going after like virality. Like sometimes that stuff can get sticky. I think it is really helpful to just hone in on who you want to be, and the people will come. As if you're consistent, if you're creating engaging content, that is a better thing to chase than like virality solely.
Yeah. I said we were going to have a time for some sound bites and advice, but you've given so many great tips all along the way. But this is a question that I get asked all the time, and my answer changes because the target keeps moving at NIL. And the question is this: what do I do first? And so if I'm a NIL Empower athlete, or if I'm not, if I'm a mid-major school, non-revenue sport, D2, D3, male or female, with your experience now doing these Empower programs, what are some basic first steps that you would tell a young person? Start with this, do this, embrace this.
The first thing I hear people say is like, I don't know what to post. Like, I don't know what to post. I want brand deals. I don't know what to post. And then the next question I ask them is like, what are your interests? So I think it's really being honest about like, what are your interests? I have a ton of interests. Not every interest is going to hit social media. So once you like can line up, hey, I'm generally interested about these things, pick and choose which ones you want people to actually know about. Some things are just not for the internet. Some things are just for you. Not your whole life shouldn't always be online. So once you know what you want to share, figuring out compelling ways to do so. And then on the back end of that, what brands would you want to partner with? And so as you figure out what brands you want to partner with and the things that you care most about, you can draw lines kind of in the sand to understand, okay, maybe this is the sweet spot for my content. Like if I were to do this type of content, I think this brand would enjoy it, or they could slot in here. That's always helpful. I think the other thing is like, don't be afraid to tag the brands you're interested in your content, even if you don't currently have a deal with them. They want to see that you're actually a fan of the brand before they work with you. It's way easier for them to go into their DMs and see many like interactions that you've had with their content and then ask about, hey, I'd love to partner with you in some way. That's a way easier, honestly, a warmer lead than you just reaching out cold and being like, hey, I like your stuff. They have no idea. They can't even tell.
That is outstanding advice, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Sydney, if people want to learn more about NIL Empower Program at Meta, where can they find you? How should they follow you? Maybe they want to submit an application at some point. Tell us a little bit about how to professionally connect with you.
Yeah, I believe there's nilempower.com through the NCAA. The applications will be going out over there. I'm pretty sure I got that URL correct, but I will send it over to you for you to share in the show notes. You can get more information about the program there. You can apply when the applications open up again in the springtime. It'll be like early winter, but for the spring cohort. And in general, that will give you a lot of information on what the program is about. But just as a brief summary, we are really trying to empower female college athletes across all NCAA divisions to utilize their NIL to the best of their ability through brand building, understanding Meta's platforms and how we can help you win, and ultimately helping you build a brand that you can use long after your time in college athletics.
Outstanding. Great stuff. Sydney Umeri, Program Manager, Meta's NIL Empower Program. We want to thank you for being a guest, and obviously wish you and all of the young ladies that you're working with all the best success, and have a great day.
Thank you so much. You too.